We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey. Welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickle, and our guest today is Birgitta Visser, and she is a self-empowerment coach, a light language healer, which she's going to tell us what that is. I'm fascinated. She has written a few books, well, actually 3. One is coming out in July, but the first 2 are Becoming Authentically Me. The second one is Become Empowered. Love that. And then the third one is I'm So Glad You Left Me. And you said that one's coming out in July. Is that right?
Yep, in July.
In
and
July.
Then another one later this year.
Nice. She's just cranking them out. And we're gonna talk today a little bit about your childhood, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about narcissistic relationships. We can't get enough of that. Interesting. So welcome.
No, hi Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm excited. And so first tell us about the light language healer. I find that interesting.
Light language healer. By the way, I love your background. Just
thank you.
Transformation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Light language healing is my mentor always says it's the cosmic language of love. And it is energy healing through the voice box, so to speak. It's very different to like spiritualist healing or Reiki healing, because your mind is not going to understand anything I'm saying. And it's channeled from, it's the many galactic beings. It could be the archangels, but it's just light that is being channeled through the voice box. And you'll probably think it's gibberish, like, what the heck is this? But on a soul level, your soul understands these codes just beautifully. And that is what it's all about. And it's also about reactivating and rewiring your DNA, repairing the DNA, which runs all the way, as they always put it, runs all the way along the spine as well. And there could be attachments, there could even be holes within our auric field, and that is things that they repair. So it's very beneficial. I've had a lot of people, some of my clients, one of them can walk properly again. It's healing, sometimes it's their past lives. Another had a fear of going into hospital. Boom, I did 10 minutes with her and she just walked in, no issues with the surgery. And
what a relief.
Yeah, it's a different sort of healing. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what kind of healing you decide to go for, you still have to put in the work. Because if you don't, you're going to slip back into your old ways, your old programming. And so when you go for healing, don't put any expectations on it. Just go with the flow of it and make sure that you do the work.
Mm-hmm. You're right. And excuse me, you're right. And, and there are different modalities, because I know a lot of my healing that I've come along, it hasn't been just one thing. It's been several things. And I think it's just where you're at the moment and it works for you where you're at.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely. Very cool. Okay. So
I'm happy to give a demo later.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I would be the person?
Yes.
Okay. I'm game.
And your listeners, right?
And the listeners? That would be awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
So you could reach out to the listeners as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I love that. Yes. Let's do that. Let's do that towards the end for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's start. You shared, excuse me, about the light language healer. I find that fascinating. I mean, it's interesting how it comes through a language.
Yes, it's all different. When I do it, I sometimes really get high because the vibrations are so high, and it helps me too.
Because it's
So it
flowing through
helps.
you, right? It's
Yeah,
flowing through
it's
you into
flowing through me.
others. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're getting healed along the way as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
healers get healed along the way as well.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right about doing
Well,
the work. You're right. You do need to be in partnership in order to work through your healing, in order for it to really stay with you. And the thing is, I know for me, so much of my healing that I've obviously participated in, I also have to manage it,
yeah.
right? I have to manage it going forward. So I'm glad you said that. So why don't you share with us a little about your childhood abuse and, well, your childhood and how much you feel like sharing, and then talk a little bit about narcissistic behavior.
Yeah. So I always say to people, prior to us being born, we sign our soul contract and we sign up for the experiences and the lessons that we would like to learn for our soul's growth. But when we get here, we forget all that, and people bounce into that victim mentality mode. And it's all about taking responsibility for our lives and understanding that when we take back our I am power, that we can actually live a fulfilled life. And so I signed up for, well, every bit of trauma you can think of. And it was a really eclectic bag, to be honest with you. But I will say this before I start. I look back on it and I am so grateful for everything that I have been through and all the characters that are in my, that are and that still are and have been a part of my playbook of life. Because how can I not be grateful? And, I love them all. I've forgiven myself. I've forgiven them all. But that has been a journey in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I moved around more times than my age, and I turned 50 in June.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I'm a bit of a nomad, a bit of a wanderer, a gypsy, if you want to call it that. I'm constantly seeking. I'm constantly absorbing new knowledge and cultures. That's just the way that I'm wired. But the first part of my childhood was I was brought up in Holland, and I was born in 1974. I popped out of my mother's womb. And yeah, I mean, the first part of my childhood was okay. Then we moved to Singapore, Malaysia in the early 1980s. And Singapore was great. I loved it, loved the culture as well. And the same for Malaysia, but that's when my troubles started. And I was, well, molested, abused, whatever you want to call it, by a friend of the family. And I always say the 1980s were a different era compared to the times that we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept it bottled up inside. But even at school, there was a, a language teacher of Bahasa Malaysia. And when I needed to go to the teacher's desk, to check my exercises, he would just rub all the way up my legs. And my sister noticed that, and she told my parents. My parents called the school, and I had to write everything down for the principal. And that in itself, I look back and I was just, 10 years old?
Yeah.
And I had to write that all down, and I didn't understand.
I was just going to say you
And
didn't understand what you were writing down.
yeah, so, and the teacher got fired, and I felt really bad because of it. And I do remember that. And they said, no, you are not at fault here. But it's very easy for an adult to say that to like a 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that, it progressed to this friend of, it was actually one of my dad's business partners. And we stayed at his house for a little while until we had our own place, because my dad went bankrupt. And so there was even a time so when we moved from that place, there was a time that my sister and I did not go to school because there was no money for it. And so we just studied at home, and it was fine for us. And so when that happened to me, I mean, when this guy did this to me, I just bottled everything up. I just didn't know. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't understand.
Right.
And when at nearly 14, we went back to Holland because there was really no more money. We had to leave everything behind. And we each just took a suitcase with our clothes, and that was it. And I do remember stroking my favorite doll, Anna, and I'm like, oh, I have to leave her behind. So everything was
Oh.
really left behind.
That's
Yeah.
all of that is traumatic. I mean, your father going bankrupt. I mean,
Yeah.
even though as a child you don't understand the significance of it, there's still something there. A child still knows
Yeah.
something's up.
And
We don't understand, but
no, no. And he always said when he moved back across the water, he would die. And
uh-oh.
he suffered from coronary heart disease pretty much as soon as he got to Holland. And that was April. And then in July of that same year, he passed away. And I knew that because I had already had a premonition. And I said to my mom, I said, Dad left a letter. You need to find it. And he did leave a letter. They found it in the hospital. And because he was out cycling and he just boom fell off his bike. And that was it, taking a last breath. And that was it. But he hadn't taken his medication. And what you call it? We call it suicide. I don't know. He was tired of life. And he was only 44. But he's fine now. He sometimes pops
He's
around.
in a good place.
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff for the various councils. But yeah, it was very traumatic for my mom and for me and my sister. My sister was 12 and I was 14, and it was like, it was surreal. I thought I'd wake up the next day and he'd be there, but he wasn't, of course. And so going to school was tough that year. I mean, I was already very insecure. I had no self-worth, so to speak. I had this ingrained fear of boys. And I was also bullied at school because I was 5'11" and I'm very, very skinny. And that didn't help. And I just wanted to hide away. So I really hunched like the hunchback of Notre Dame, as I always say. I just wanted
try
to
to make yourself
disappear.
small. Yeah, make yourself small.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I remember going on camp in Belgium, and there was one of these guys, and in front of the whole class, he just grabbed my arm and he goes, "Look how skinny she is." Yeah, that didn't do me any favors. And I think even at that time, I would always throw away my school lunches, just didn't want to eat. But at home, I'd have dinner at the dinner table, at the family table. And my sister and I started working when we were 15, just on Saturdays and Thursday nights at a department store, just to help my mom out with the bills, because she was a single parent.
Yeah.
And she was also working part-time and taking care of us. Because, when my dad passed away in 1988, he left my mom with nothing but a debt.
Ooh.
So my mom, had to work really, really hard. And I didn't care that we walked around in secondhand clothes. Yeah, it's better than walking around naked, right? So, and then my mom decided she wanted to put me on a modeling course at around 16 because to try and crick up my confidence. Well, that went sideways.
Bless her heart. She meant well. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I got picked up by a hairdresser to do a hair show, being one of the main models. I thought, super, that's great. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Except he chopped my hair into a pixie cut. And I felt really ugly. And it wasn't like I could have extensions or just make it grow really quickly. So it took some time. But, even after school, I just wanted to prove myself. And I tried my hand at modeling, but I was even assaulted in that industry because I wasn't thick-skinned, didn't sleep around, didn't understand, just didn't really understand the world. But I still gave it a go. And I was assaulted by a hairdresser in New York. And yes, I traveled around a lot. That is true. But when my stepdad passed away in 2001, well, I know I was 25. he passed away of cancer in the throat area, and I would always help my mom on the weekends from London. I go to Buckingham and Buckinghamshire. I remember one of my former friends saying, "Oh, I'm at Buckingham Palace. Where are you?" I'm like, "I don't live near Buckingham Palace. It's Buckingham in Buckinghamshire County." And so that was quite funny. But when my stepdad crossed over, my mom leaned on me a lot, and I didn't have an outlet. And I had friends that were, well, friends that were doing drugs. And yeah, I messed myself up for about 3 months. And I suffered from, I suffered from a blackout. And honestly, I had sex and I wasn't even aware of it. I was like, I wasn't even there. And that was a complete violation for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped from one day to the next. And so my mom, when I told my mom was like, "Are you still doing it?" I said, "No, Mom, I'm not. I'm not." I didn't skive of work because I was still working. This was just, I couldn't handle the emotions. It was just too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted to talk about things, and I'm sure even many of your listeners will understand this, it's like you can talk about it for a few minutes, but then people expect you to be this happy-go-lucky person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's what they're used. That's what they're used to. And so listening to someone that has issues or is grieving does not fit the narrative. And I guess I just wanted to somehow fit in, as we all do. Yeah. And then
Right.
it causes that dis-ease, that discomfort within ourselves.
Yep.
And we put ourselves in the boxing ring. And I was an absolute pro at it for most of my life.
Because up until this point, you hadn't done any therapy or anything like that. You have just, all this
No,
stuff that's happened to you, you have stuff down, stuff down, stuff down, right?
stuff down. Yes.
Which is
Yes,
very,
I
very
did.
common. It's very common.
Yes. Yeah. I think maybe in this day and age, people are starting to reach out more, but it's still so many suffer in silence,
Yes.
because there is such shame in reaching out. And there shouldn't be any shame in reaching out, because I think, it takes courage. It takes strength to reach out for help. It does. And especially because we live in such an opinionated and judgmental world these days. And it's rife with all these comparisons on social media on how you should live, what you should look like, how you should improve your life. And we try and fit into a mold and try and be someone that we are not. And that's just the way society has been created. But I rolled into dysfunctional relationships. I always say 21 and a half, when I was living out in Istanbul, I met a Turkish guy, and my stepdad put us when he was still alive, in the address book as Hitler and Eva Braun. Great.
Wow.
I know. Oh, that was like, oh gosh, great, John. But he had even now he's crossed over. I mean, he always had a wicked sense of humor. And yeah, that was a very dysfunctional relationship that I landed in. But I was always trying to fix others, making sure that they did well in life.
Yep.
And I just withered away
Yep.
like a wallflower.
Yep.
And I was working wherever I went. I was working my socks off. But this is a story I also tell. Like, my dad, when he was angry, I saw him breaking plates once. So when I was frustrated with this guy, I slammed plates on the floor. And that kind of got me nowhere. But I learned to vent my frustrations like that. And when I left Germany, and remember, I mean, at that point, I still didn't have any. I had no counseling. That came much later in my life, the healing.
Wow.
And yeah, and even so, I think when I met another ex of mine who's now in North Carolina, and bless his cotton socks, he's on his own healing path, but he's doing really well for himself. And in 2009, when we were together, I paid for it. Yeah, this is it. I paid for his tickets to come from the US to Holland, where I was living at the time. And I didn't even know. Maybe I was very naive that he was like a part-time crack addict. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And it got from bad to worse. I mean, I'd never seen someone with crack hands, and he desperately wanted to get better, but he pawned my stuff. Oh my God, he broke into my home, and the police took him, and they dropped him at the airport, and he went back to The Hague, and he left he left his suitcase at another station, and my number was on it. And so that, security called me out from the station. I'm sorry, but there's a suitcase here. I'm like, what? So I had to go fetch it. But even though he tried to get better and he wanted to go for counseling and he wanted to go into rehab, they wouldn't take him on because he didn't have a Dutch social security number, which is ridiculous. It's like a catch-22 situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so he landed in bed with the Dutch Crips. He stole from them. And I was in this continuous fight or flight mode because I didn't even understand this. This was, woof, it
Yeah.
just washed all over me.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom came and she took me out of Holland. We spoke to the police, and the police asked her, "What are you going to do?" And my mom said, "Well, I'm taking her out of Holland, and she's rented an apartment not far from me in the UK." And I did help the police locate my ex, and he was really glad that they found him, and he was deported back to the US.
And you say he's
And
doing better
I
now?
was left. Yeah, he's doing really well. He's turned his life around. He's had some health issues, but he's on the road to healing. And he is a beautiful soul. And I always say he's on this path of self-discovery and healing and peeling back these layers. He's a bit of as I say, a bit of a slow-ass turtle, but he's a beautiful soul. It takes men a little bit longer to heal, and get with the program.
Yeah.
But I take my hat off to him for turning his life around.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
for me, I mean, I took a whole box of ibuprofen. I just wanted to end my life. And it was a really lame attempt, as I always say, because I did wake up the next day and I thought to myself, yeah, I cannot go on like this. And so my mom said, why don't you go and see a counselor? And I did. And look, I'm not going to knock counselors because some of them are really good. I just happen to have a really bad one. She listened to my story, and at the end of that hour, she just said to me, Birgitta, you're fine. You're strong enough. You'll get past this. That is exactly what she said. And I remember walking out there thinking, yeah, what am I going to do with that? How? It just makes no sense. But I didn't come here with a cheat sheet around my neck to see what my next move would be. So I went for I found a Reiki healer, and I walked the holistic route because I found that worked for me, and she was amazing. She really, really was. And she said, you know what, you're a doormat, you're a people pleaser. Yeah, I was. And I continued doing that for several more years because people can tell you you're a people pleaser, but it's very hard when you are so programmed and so conditioned to live a certain way that that's what you do because you're so afraid of being hurt by others. You're so afraid if you say the wrong thing that people will talk bad of you. And so I went out of my way for still many more years to come. And my mechanism has always been, and that's why I say I put myself in the boxing ring. For many years, it was starving myself. I think in New York, it was pretty bad. I still have pictures of that. And I always said to people, it's my metabolism. But, and they gobbled it up. And the other thing, I worked like crazy, like 7 days a week. Even in New York, I was hostessing. I was doing promotion work and some modeling work via Craigslist when it was still bona fide, so to speak, when you could still trust it.
Yeah.
These days, it's just garbage.
Ooh, yeah.
So I was always on the go, and I was always working. And,
Do you think, and let me
that's
ask you
how I
this.
kept my emotions at bay.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I was just
It's
going
a
to ask you
coping
that.
mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep busy,
Coping
busy, busy so that you
mechanism.
don't have to deal with this.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happened in 2009, I was really forced um, to confront some of my demons, so to speak. And so, yes, I studied many different healing modalities. And, well, my guides were like, "Whoa, Birgitta, yeah, you're not doing so bad, but let's send you another character that you signed up for and see what happens. What are you going to do?"
Oh, no.
Bit of a different
Thanks.
packaging. And I unwrapped it. And what did I do? The same thing. The same thing. And they're eating up there. They're watching the screen, eating their popcorn. Oh my God, here we go again. This is another bold and beautiful drama.
Oh my gosh. I could so relate. I can
Yeah.
so
And
relate.
this guy was like, oh, this was a trip. He, I mean, I thank him for having been part of my life. Again, he's doing well for himself, but it was me again. Hey, well, I've got my own place in St. Petersburg in Florida, mortgage free. And he moved from an hour away to two doors down. But he suffered the loss of his mom,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd never suffered a loss before. So he fell into this depression, but he also then got a reckless, and he was adamant that because he wasn't driving and he didn't want to do the test, and then it got from bad to worse because he couldn't pay the lawyer, and there was a warrant out for his arrest, something that I didn't know until much later. And so I was paying some of his bills. I was working 7 days a week. I was dog walking, doing promotions, some modeling work, because you can put me in the desert, yeah, but I will always find work, because that has always been my mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought him groceries. I found him, several jobs. I said, look for this and this, just apply. And his problem was, and he told me much later, is that he wanted to work on himself, but he also had this fear of losing me. So he hung on to me, clung on to me so desperately that I couldn't breathe. I felt cornered.
Yeah.
And again, I was in that fight or flight mode, because he would say, "Where are you going? Who are you going out with?" And we weren't even together anymore. And he just said to me, "I don't understand. People work things out. You learn to love someone again." No, I don't love you anymore in that way. I'm not in love with you. And he would get nasty when he was drinking, and I did not like that. I was called names. I did apologize for that. I said, do not ask me to go out with you again.
Mm-mm.
And he would come for dinner, because he'd have the keys, and he refused to return the keys. And people say, "Well, why didn't you change the locks?" Yeah, because he had threatened me with immigration, and I needed to sort that out, the extension, because I'd already applied for it. But my mind was so far shot that my back was against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even going out to the market. He's like, "How can you wear that?" He's like, "I'm not going to the market with you when you're wearing that." I'm like, "But what's wrong with my clothes?" And so I was like, "Oh my gosh." Um, I can laugh about it now, but when I was in that moment, it was
Mm-hmm.
it was tough. And I sold my house to get away from him, and bought another one. My mom said, and the realtor said, "Why don't you go back home to the UK?" And I'm like, "No, because I feel like a complete and utter failure."
Mm.
And so I bought another home, and it was a bit of a money pit. I made a loss on that, but that's okay. We live and learn. But being in that home, and you know what, Lisa, there were times where I was just crying on the floor and screaming at spirit, because I was just in the dark in my own home, because I didn't want him to see that I was home.
Mm.
And I would be screaming. That's how unhappy I was. And finally, when I moved home, I started to listen to the universe, and it came in the form of a little breadcrumb that I found, of combo healing, which is shamanic frog medicine. And it's very, very physical. It's amazingly well. It was very powerful for me, and I think I needed that. I needed to shake up my system. I needed
Yeah.
to get that conditioning removed. And I always say this when it comes to our mind, because we're, body, mind, and spirit, but we feed our mind so much. We ingest so much from the outer world and what people think of us and how they feel about us, that it's our ego that sits in the driver's seat, and our soul is always locked in the trunk. And
So
it's our
true.
soul that should be in the driver's seat rather than the ego. The ego is great, to understanding ourselves better, but when we return to that love for ourselves, we become different. We see life differently because we look at things with the eyes of love. And people say, well, that's a little bit wishy-washy, isn't it?
But it's
No,
true.
you it is true, because you actually, when you change, I know this is from quantum physics, change your thinking, change your life. And it is that simple, but it's our mind that creates all these barriers. And it's our mind that, where we archive all our unhealed experiences, and we need to deal with whatever trauma we suffered, whatever pain that we have suffered, and just go through it step by step and analyze that and see how we can heal that. And whatever works best for you, do just that. But don't allow yourself to be pulled in all different directions. Yeah, because people are, as I said, are very opinionated. They can say, well, that is not that, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that. But as I always say to people, understand that you're a beautiful soul, and you're really here to return to that love for yourself. So sit with yourself, sit with your demons around the campfire, on the inside, and talk to them and embrace them, and don't see them as a foe, but see them as a friend teaching you something. Just like the people in our lives are triggers, and they teach us something. And when we look at it that way, when we start to think differently, then you will get all these aha moments.
Yes.
And yep.
I know those aha moments well. I love them.
Yes.
Have so many of them. They're awesome.
and even when I was out in Florida, and I remember my ex's place needed to be tented, and I had to pay for the hotel, and these two cats to be in the hotel, and because he said to the landlord, oh, I can stay with Birgitta. I said, how can you say that? And so I even did that. And then when the place was still tented, I wasn't going to pay for an extra day, but he said, no, it's going to be removed this afternoon. So I went there, the tenting was still on there, and I swear to God, I had lost it in the car. I was driving and screaming, I was just driving through every red light. I couldn't even think anymore. I don't even know to this day, as I always say, I don't know how the cops didn't stop me. It was really bad. I was so far gone, so far gone. And that was prior to me doing combo. But that was the final straw for me. And when I done the combo healing, and the shaman had, because you either get 4 burn points on your arm or on your leg, and then the Amazonian tree frog poison is put onto these points, and you just start purging. It's just like a heat rush. And when I was there, I had this yellow bucket next to me, and I was just purging and purging for nearly 4 hours.
Ugh.
And you also have to drink 2 liters of water. And I just ran up and down to the toilet, and because it just comes out everywhere. And for a shaman, they're so used to it because that's normal. I was so glad I
I
took a
couldn't
change
do
of
it.
underwear with me. No. I just
Bless
seriously, it
their
was a
hearts that
mess. But
they can do that. Oh, bless their hearts.
yeah, so he did tell me 4 hours is a long time. And he says, "Do you know why?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Because your ego was battling so hard to stay in place." And I
And you had a
remember him
lot to
saying, just,
purge though. You know, don't you
oh, it
think?
was,
Because you hadn't, yeah, you had stuffed for so many years that you had a lot to purge.
I did. I mean, yes, I'd done Reiki treatment and other treatments, and I'd studied at other healing modalities, but it's like every time it's like a layer. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's one step forward, 2 steps back. And it's
Yeah.
really trying to figure out what works for you.
Right.
And what works for one doesn't work for another.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, yeah. And so from that point on, I mean, I was clear out. I did it 2 more times.
Was it another
And the
4 hours
second and
each
third
time?
time, no, it went pretty quick. Pretty quick. But
Interesting.
I made a whole bucket list of wanting to go skydiving. And I promised my stepdad that I would go, I would run for charity. And that remained in my head for about 16 years anyway. But then I started doing it 5Ks and sometimes 10Ks. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. And I was always one of these people that when people started to walk, and even when I was running in the UK, it was the same thing. I would say, "Come on, grab their hand. Come on, you got to keep running." And they did. They did.
Mm-hmm.
They would start running again. Um, and so
One of the
several
things
weeks later,
I wanted to share
yep,
though, that an
yeah,
observation, because I've really been studying a lot about survival mode, and I
yes,
recognize my survival mode, and you gave a really good description of survival mode in
yeah,
talking about your moves and talking about the relationships that you had,
yeah,
and I know that when I share mine, I kind of, I'm like, but it's the things that we do in survival mode that we wouldn't do
yeah,
outside of survival mode,
correct.
right? And we need to give ourselves a lot of grace for that and forgive ourselves for the things that we did. And I know you have, and I
Yeah,
have too. I have, for the most part. There's still some things that come up
yeah,
and I cringe, when I remember them. But that's the truth. You were in survival mode, and you were, like you said, you were working like crazy. You were doing things to
yeah.
just get through the day, just make it to the next
Yes,
day. Really, seriously, I want to get to the end of
that's
today,
it.
and then I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll deal with tomorrow.
Yes, it's like living on autopilot, isn't it?
Truly, truly, yeah, yeah. Because you when you're in survival mode, you do lack a lot of presence because you can't, because you're looking for problems to solve all the time. Because I know for me,
Yeah,
when I was in survival mode, I was looking. If there wasn't a problem before me, I would go and find it. That's my mindset. I got to go fix. I got to go fix. I got to fix everybody else. And so my
yeah,
focus was on everybody else and not on me.
yeah, yeah. That's what we do, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we want to fix others. We really want to fix others. And that was my biggest problem. And I didn't understand that I needed to fix myself and work on the relationship with myself because it
Yeah.
is important to work on yourself. And so that is one of the things that I also always say. If we keep trying to fix another person, how can you allow for that person to walk their journey? How can you, that person also needs to fall and needs to learn. You can't hold their hands every step of the way, because at the end of the day, all you do is you're also hurting yourself, and you're also
Hmm.
stopping and stumping your own growth. And it's really important for us to accept one another as we are. And if we may not agree with others, but we still need to allow for them to walk their journey.
I
And it's
actually
something
was
that
told, I was actually told by God to get out of the way, because
yes,
I was getting in the way. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fix it, fix it, fix it. And I mean, I all but heard an audible voice, get out of the way, get out of the way. And when I heard that, I'm like, what? and my intent, and I'm sure yours too, is I just want to help. I'm trying to do a
Yes.
good thing. And it looks like that. But that got my attention.
Yeah, it's true. That's a really good saying. Yes, get out the way. And that's what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
But in other words, it's also, get out of your own way.
Yeah, that one too. I heard
Yeah.
that one too. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So even from that point on, I mean, I did past life regret, not past life regression. I did that several years earlier, but I walked through the Akashic records with my then mentor Alania Starhawk in Florida to heal past lives. And in one of these past lives, my ex in Florida, he had poisoned me with gosh, what do you call that in English? Arsenic?
Oh, arsenic. Yeah, the
It's
arsenic is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like something similar to rat poison. It was something else, but it happened over several months, and he said he was nurturing me, and yes, but I died several months later, and it was all about for him to climb the social ladder in that lifetime. I think, that was another lifetime. And it was really weird because in that lifetime, when I met him, I suffered terrible stomach issues. For months, I couldn't eat properly. I could barely drink a cup of tea. It just came out. I was still working. I would just
Interesting.
run to the toilet and throw up. And that was really, really bad. And so she mentioned that, and I said, oh, that now makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd sort of healed from that already, but I mean, I'd lost so much weight.
I
It was
bet.
terrible. And it's funny because when you walk through the Akashic record, when you do Akashic record healing sessions, when you walk through past lives, it's like it gets cleared. And so he left me alone, which is brilliant. I mean, I
Ooh.
wasn't there for very long anymore, but I needed to sell up, and I just didn't have enough money to leave the country, and I needed to get the vaccinations for my dog, so that took several months, and then I left. But under Alania, I did learn how to channel, which was very, very powerful for me, and it was very self-healing as well. And anybody can channel. We all have that ability within us. And all you need to do is really just take out a pad and a pen and just say to the universe, I am ready and I am open to receive. And then just write whatever
Mm-hmm.
comes to you. And people say, yeah, but what is it not my mind? No, you
Mm-mm.
don't think about it. You
I've done
just
something
write.
like that. It's really weird. It
Yeah.
bypasses your brain completely. And then when
Yeah.
you read it, you're shocked because it's weird. It doesn't go through your mind as you're writing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the experience I had. And then I would read it
Yeah.
after and it would make me cry because it was like I had no idea what I wrote.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
powerful.
It is very, very powerful. And if you want to use the 8 of cards, whether it's Ascended Masters, Archangels, you name it, you can do that too. You pick a card and you just say to whoever it is, do you have a message? Do you have a message for me? And you just write whatever comes. And that's it. And it's the same. It's like learning to ride a bike. That's the same with channeling or automatic writing. It's the same thing. Um, but I did ask a lot of questions. I
I
did,
bet.
and it's great to get the response. And these days, sometimes they will talk in riddles, and they are like, and I'm like, but what does that mean? And I'll look it up afterwards, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Thank goodness.
Because sometimes they also write in prose or Old English, like Shakespearean, as I call it.
Oh,
Yes, so very, very interesting. And yeah, I've not looked back. I mean, when I went back to the UK, I felt like a complete failure again. I said to my mom, look at everyone. They're married, they've got kids, they've got a mortgage, they've got a house, they've got a good job. And my mom looks at me and she's like, but you've traveled the world.
yes. Yes.
Yes.
You have
And
experiences. Yes. So
different
you had it in
experiences.
your
Yeah.
head that in order to be successful, you need to be married and have a family, have a home, and do the traditional thing that everybody else has done.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I've, that was quite a few years ago. And yeah, I had to rebuild my life again in the UK for several years. And yeah, light language came to me probably about 1.5 years ago. I mean, I was always trying, but it was like so stuck, so stuck. And
I know that
um,
feeling.
yeah, yeah. And so I said to one of my mentor, Siobhan Purcell, I said, look, I said, just kick me off that cliff. And so we had a face-to-face session, and she really pounced upon me, and it was like it just started to flow. And I love it. I'm very humbled to be able to use it. But even last year, don't think that my life is a bed of roses. Yeah, because I still go through experiences, and
Right.
sometimes they're tough. They are not easy. Last year, I worked myself into the ground. Yeah, because I had two full-time roles within the company. So I was working like 70 hours a week. Then I had to do all my spiritual work, and I was just running out of
Oh.
steam. I couldn't even breathe properly because I was taking on all this
Oh
responsibility.
yeah.
And my guides were like, "Oh, Birgitta, how's it going down there? What are you doing to yourself?" Yeah, I was
How's that
killing
working for you?
myself. And my buddy was like, excuse me, you're losing weight. What is this?
Because
It
just the
was
spirit
insane.
side is going to be exhausting. That just doing the spiritual side that
Yeah.
you do is exhausting. Never mind the two jobs.
Yes, so that was in the company, and now, and I pushed back. I really pushed back, and I said, "Look, I don't want that role anymore. I'll do one role. I'm just doing my hours, and that's it." Yeah. And some people tell me, "Well, you should shift completely to doing the spiritual work." I said, "Yeah, but I still need to pay my bills for now, and eventually I will transition out when that
Mm-hmm.
timing is right." But my work is in service of spirit, and inspiring and empowering other people to live a far more fulfilled life, and knowing that we can each overcome our trauma. We
Mm-hmm.
have the ability within us to overcome anything that we go through. We forget that we are divine alchemists. That means we are they're just saying we're energy generators. Yeah, we are. We are in fact energy generators, but we also energy. That is what we are. And so we're here to understand that we can weave and manipulate the energy to, um, well, to overcome, but to also manifest our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Very interesting. So on the narcissistic side, did that come from the men that you were dating or you were
Oh
with?
yeah, I chose the same kind of characters over
Mm.
and over again.
Did you
That's
have a
what we do.
narcissist in your life as a child that you know of?
No, no, not my dad, not my mom. No.
But you're an empath, so
Yes, I'm a SpongeBob. Yes.
yeah. As empaths are, I mean, narcissists are drawn to empaths or sensitive people. Yeah.
It's great, isn't it, when you're an empath? It's like, hey, you walk into a room and you absorb the energy and you feel like sugary banana, and they feel great.
Oh yeah.
Woohoo! They're on top of the world.
Yeah, we know how to make them feel fantastic, right?
Yes.
And they know how to make us feel yeah. And I've said this, I say this all the time. Until you've been in a narcissistic relationship, you have no idea. And this place of, when you said earlier how people are like, well, why don't you just leave him? Why don't you just leave him?
Doesn't work that way.
When you're an empath and you're in survival mode,
Yep.
that that doesn't even really cross your mind. You're just trying to make things work. That's our job. We got to make things work. We
Yes.
got to fix it. We got to fix it. We got to fix it. And we're
Yes.
not thinking about, I know for me, I wasn't thinking about me. I wanted to make him better. That was my
Yes.
focus.
Yep. Yep.
And in doing that, of course, we suffer, right?
Yep.
But that's kind of our mindset. Because I was sitting here thinking, I totally get where you're coming from. And I've had people say that to me, and I would get so upset that they would say that to me. Like, but you don't know the potential of this person. They're such a great person. You don't know what you're talking about. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. And all I'm focused, I'm not even looking at what they're doing to me. regular. Like I would take moments I would look at it and get upset. But for the most part, it was like, no, I got to fix them. I got to fix them.
Yes. It said, it's like an ad on your forehead, looking for a fixer-upper. Looking
Right?
for a fixer-upper. And it
So
just
true.
flashes across.
Yeah. Come to me, I'll fix you.
Oh, I'm a fixer-upper. I'm a fixer-upper.
me, pick me. It's so true. It's so true. And it's just like, I was famous for telling everybody how they should live their life, and my life was a hot mess.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that place, that survival mode of, if I'm busy fixing everybody else, then I don't have to look at myself.
Correct.
So part of it is staying physically busy. The other part is fixing everybody else, and then take a little look at myself and not like it, and then go back and find something else to fix because mine was too big.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, I've been studying about...
the weird...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The weird thing about it was, like, I was teaching Reiki and I was healing and I was doing all these workshops and I could function just fine.
Yeah.
But it's insane. It was just insane because I was so broken on the inside. But people didn't really notice that at all.
No.
Didn't notice it.
No. As a matter of fact, before I started doing this podcast and I started really looking at this stuff, and because really the deepest part of my healing has been over like the last 13, 15 years. But I can remember, like, it hit me. I'm like, I shared my stories at times because I did a workshop and I shared it then, but in general, every day I didn't. And people were shocked when they were hearing stuff. And, and it was just, I was so focused on really everybody else. And part of it, though, honestly, when I think about it, there was some manipulation in me because I was trying to make everything better so that I could be comfortable, really. Because I was in so much pain and I wanted to get away from the pain.
Yep.
And in survival mode, you will do things to get yourself out of pain that you wouldn't do outside of it.
Yep.
So how did you get out of picking narcissists?
Well, after early 2015, I've been on my own. It's been brilliant. Yes, I've been on my own for a long time. But I just want to point out one thing, though. It happens to women, but it also happens to men, and men internalize it differently. I was on a podcast several days ago, and it's so interesting how men internalize everything, and it takes them even more courage to reach out because they think they're masculine and they can't cry and they just need to move forward and keep going, go and do. But again, even for men, never be ashamed to reach out to someone.
No, we've really done a disservice.
It's so important to heal.
Yeah,
you'll do yourself indeed a disservice, and it's just so important to heal. It really, really is.
It is a different situation for men because they do have to battle with I've got to look like a real man and I can't show these emotions. I can show anger, I can show aggression, and my girlfriend and I have talked about this for years, about the disservice that we've done with men and how we've raised men and we've put them in this box. And, I had a counselor say to me one time, I thought it was simple, but yet profound, that he said, men and women have the same emotions. They have the same emotions.
They do.
It's just men aren't allowed to express them, except for anger. They're told that they're taught and told to suppress, the emotions. Suck it up, Buttercup. Put your big boy pants on. Don't cry. Rub some dirt on it. And when he said that, it hit me, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it made me realize that we don't allow them. It's getting better now. We're certainly getting better now, but for so long, for my father's life and even, my ex-husband's life, it was just, don't cry. You can be angry.
Yeah. And that's when you have the masculine and the feminine, and men live more in the masculine rather than having that balance. And we should all have that balance. I think for the longest time, I was also go, do, and, running from my own emotions, much like you. But the feminine is all about nourishing our spirit and our spirituality. And that is really important. It's so important to nurture our spirit as well
Right.
and
And
have that balance, that yin and yang.
exactly. And the thing too, and I brought this up in a podcast the other day, and I think this is really profound. And for us women who were also raised with the kind of same mindset about how men should be, we need to be comfortable with letting men show their emotions. And it is uncomfortable because
Yes.
it's not the norm for us, right? Because we're raised different. And we need
Yep.
to encourage that and allow, especially, when our little boys, teach them that it's okay to cry, that it's not, let them express themselves, you know. I brag so much about my one daughter-in-law. She does such a great job with her kids because she does take the time to sit with them and allow them to express themselves and talk. And and it's so beautiful to see. I love that. And
Yeah.
she's not about reprimanding them all the time, but really hearing what they have to say.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
I always say people can hear, but do they actually listen?
Oh, amen to that. Yeah. Amen to that. That's a good one. So we're going to do a light language healing.
Yes. So what would you like to focus on for you, for the I was going to say the readers, the listeners.
Let's focus on the listeners, and I'll
Yep.
come along, but yeah, this will be for
Yep.
the listeners.
So do we just do a general healing and see whatever? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it will just be absorbed within their energy field or wherever it needs to go.
Okay.
And we'll throw clarity in the mix as well.
There you go. Yeah, for sure. Always use clarity.
Okay, fine. And as they're saying, peace of mind, peace. Yes. Okay. All right.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. So I'm just going to ask you to close your eyes. Okay. And just take a very deep breath in. Hold it. And gently, gently let that go. And when we breathe in and out, try and breathe all the way from your root chakra, all the way up to your crown chakra, and then hold it. And again, gently release that. And as I bring through the light codes in a minute, just allow for them to be absorbed in your whole body. Like I said, you're not going to understand, but your soul is going to understand these light codes just beautifully. And that's what it's all about. So, Tani na iwa lua niki alu siumi atakataya makui di ayuki asa pokelate ke yamanui niki awa uni asa moiki awa uki akaka nuku yakasakuni awa a. Tani tini ki awa ki abale pini ki amakasa ki yamakatai maku isi awa a sikalu ki yamakanu ki yawaka wi si yamaka wi takai makani ki yawala ki yamakasi ki yamaka uyaka tiki yama uki asiki yamaka yuya tatataini miki yawa e na yu. They're actually talking about joy and allowing that to flow through the energy particles within your whole body, and just feel that wherever it needs to go. Tokiaka nukiyamakasi kuunukuyamalaka tokiyatakiamakushi niwa a talikiyamanuke tikatayamakatatamini wa a tikita si malawe he makanuku ile kia maha nuku ya pa we he tuni ya muni ya wa he mana he kisi ya maho nu ya kami anasi ya hai we ya mahu ke maho nu ni ya samo ke ya hai no he manu he wa he mahu ya we ya hu ka tiki ya mahu Kasikiama uniawa a to enemiawa a. And these are what I call the star walker people that are fixing the holes within your beautiful energy field, making you feel whole again. Toke ke ke ka nuku iniki awa hati kia maha. Tika aniki se malawa hete kia maa. They say, do not forget to bow in gratitude for all that you have been through. And be kind, be compassionate, be gentle and loving with yourself. Tuki kia makata kia mau. Ta si miya maui ni kia wa akia mako anu ya sikia maha. Tesiyama, tesiyama kaniyama makue eteke ama. So, and whenever you're ready, you can just open your eyes.
That was cool. That was really cool. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's different. I'm high now.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you are. It's very
These
similar.
are beings I've not worked with before, besides the ones at the end. I call them, they're very, very ancient. You call them Native American Indians, but they were prior to that time. So I call them Star Walker people because they walk between worlds. And they often come in to clear everything within the body and the energy field. But the ones before that, I've not. Nope, that was
Have you
new
dealt
for
with
me.
that before? Have you had that before, where you have beings that you've never engaged with before?
Yes. Oh yeah, they come through all the time. It's great. It's brilliant. I'm one of these freaks, right? I go to bed and I will start talking light language. Or I walk my dog, I start talking light language, and people must think I'm crazy. Well, they can't.
Well,
They can't see me, or they can see me, but they can't really hear it.
it's
But
very
at night,
similar
yeah, before I go to bed,
to speaking in tongues, which is what I do.
it
It's very
is, isn't
similar.
it? Speaking? Yeah.
It's speaking a different language, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yes, it's good juju.
Yes, it's very good juju. And I get it, because when
So,
I have my moments of speaking in tongues, like after I'm just full of energy. And kind of
yeah.
what I was envisioning when you were talking about the energy is, and filling in the holes, I was just imagining like energy is light to me. That's how I
Yes.
see it, right? It's light.
Yeah.
And I was seeing in my energy, like there's these dark spots, right? And like, bink,
Yeah.
bink, the lights were coming on. Little lights are
Yes.
coming on. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, thank you so much for this. And I pray that this goes out to the audience and just touches all of them and brings healing into their life for sure. And if it's the beginning of their healing, awesome. And if it takes them to a deeper healing, that's awesome as well. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. And like I always say, even I'm still a work in progress. I'm learning
Yeah.
every single day. Never stop
Right.
learning.
Right. And I want to learn something every day, and and
Yeah.
I'm on my healing journey until I take my last breath, and that's okay.
Yep.
I'm okay with that,
Yep. We all are. And if we take a step, sometimes if we fall, it's okay. If we stumble, it's okay. As long as we get up and we are conscious of whatever we're going through.
And I am so glad that you realized that you weren't a failure when you went back to the UK, and that you realized that no, you actually have a very successful life, and that's awesome. And
Yeah.
that it
I'm
wasn't a
I'm in
failure.
Spain now, so
Yeah. So that's awesome. So what do you want to leave our listeners with?
well, what am I going to leave the listeners with? Well, okay. So, as I will always say, no matter what you're going through, don't feel like you cannot reach out. Remember, you have many friends out in the other worldly realms, as I always say, in the universe, out in the universe. But on the earthly plane, just reach out to someone or just seek the help that aligns with your spirit. But don't remain as you are, because you are so deserving of living a life fulfilled. Don't think you don't matter. You do matter. You have purpose. You are alive for a reason. So hug it out with yourself, take that responsibility and commence on your healing journey, and relinquish these experiences that you have been through. Suffering, people think they have to suffer, but you don't have to suffer. Suffering is, how do I put that? Suffering is, in ways, it's a blessing in disguise, because the more challenging your experiences are, the more opportunity to overcome it. And the more aware you become that there is actually more to life than just the trauma that you have harbored within the archives of your mind. Remember, you're beautiful, light of the divine. Never forget that. And if you think that you are not loved, trust me, we love you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love that. Excuse me. And so if somebody wanted to reach out to you, I'll have all this information for the listeners as well. But why don't you tell us how they can reach out to you?
They can find me on my website on powersoulhealing.com. I'm on Instagram under Universal Light Warriors. I'm on YouTube under Power Soul Healing. And then I'm also on my regular Facebook page, which is under my name, Birgitta Visser.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And listeners, if you like what you hear and you want to share it with others, please do. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Podcasts, and there's others as well. But subscribe and share, because we want to get this healing energy out there to everybody. So help us share that. And thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for the little session we had. I felt it, and I pray that my listeners did too as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
It's been great. It's been awesome.